welcome to Borderless Diaries. It's so nice to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Well, Jorrit, every guest starts with the same question. What is one of the most unforgettable, funny, or downright awkward experience that you've had in a new country or a new role in the culture?
Yeah, it's that's. I saw your question, and I thought of two things. One is being a Dutch, and you will appreciate that. Is our directness and how we kind of grow up and how we communicate and how we understand each other back home in the Netherlands. That doesn't really work if you if you move abroad. So my first couple of experiences were a bit bumpy. So you want, especially I moved for a large company for Vodafone at the time to a role in the UK and later to the US. So I got a good taste of our directness in and how that comes across. And the other thing that is a funny one is how we greet each other. And if you typically greet the people you are closer to with three kind of fake kisses, right? But as soon as you move to the US, it's two, and that can bring you into very awkward situations if you meet other people and your your hats are misaligned at some point. COVID took care of all of that because I don't think anybody is doing it anymore. Luckily, we're hugging and we're fist pumping and all that stuff. But I think those two things, on the directness on the one hand, and then how you greet each other on the other hand,
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
something I really needed to get used to. Yeah. You
I
recognize that, or?
I do recognize that. I actually didn't think of the three kisses that we used to
Yeah,
do because indeed COVID took kind of care of that. But from a cultural perspective, especially I think in Ireland, when I moved to Ireland, that was less of an issue because the Irish can be
yeah,
also direct and we were in kind of a multicultural setting anyway. So I had a lot of the Dutch, I had a lot of South African friends, etc. So the directness was more appreciated there. But then when I moved to the United States, I had a couple of times where people were like really taking aback and I was like,
yeah,
sorry, I
yeah,
didn't mean it
yeah,
that way.
yeah,
Luckily my team knows now that I'm a straight shooter, so they know
yeah,
that, but I definitely needed to tone it down a little bit to kind of fit into the culture.
yeah, yeah. And you will recognize when you come back or
Yeah,
go back, especially after years, that you adapt and you adjust. And we'll probably talk about that a little bit
yeah,
more. But then you will really start to recognize that stuff back
yeah,
home,
yeah,
even with
yeah,
friends and family.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
that's true.
yeah,
Well, and there's also the beauty of having that kind of multicultural way of living as well, that you take kind of like the good and the bad
yeah,
of some of these
yeah,
cultures and that you can recognize things because it's also a really good time for having that reflection basically because back home you wouldn't have like the feedback of oh that was way too direct or this is
no,
maybe not efficient and because you've had that experience across different countries you learn because people will tell you like hey that wasn't the best way to say things.
yeah, yeah,
So you'll take me a little bit back. Your journey started in the Netherlands. You're originally from the Netherlands, and then your journey took you all the way here to the United States. But obviously, there were some steps in between. Where did your journey started?
It basically started in the US. You obviously it started in the Netherlands, but I had the good fortune of working for an international company that had multiple kind of pathways to an international career, I guess. And the first my first taste of working internationally, and the funny story is that like my wife, who I met at Vodafone 18 years ago now, worked in the international group of Vodafone, and she was super focused on, I want to work abroad someday. It would be a great adventure. And back then, I was a guy that was like, "Hey, I'm fine where I live. I don't even have to move inside of the country." But I think the seed got planted there, and the fact that I worked for such an internationally exposed company, yeah, gave me that starting point. And then
Yeah.
through a role that had a double role in the UK and in New York, I ended up in New York. So that's 2014 now. So coming on 12 years almost
Yeah.
that this whole journey started. Yeah,
Wow. Already. Do you
yeah.
still remember when you first arrived, how you were finding your place in that new setting and kind of that global setting for you as well?
Yeah, definitely. Because it was, first of all, it was very weird to be part of that process because I was working for the Dutch subsidiary, which was, and the Dutch subsidiaries are typically the smallest subsidiaries of any global company. And then you get invited to London or Newbury in this case to have interviews for a different role, and you see, wow, things are already different, right? Like the scale at an HQ, the speed, the people you work with. And then you come back home. And I think I was originally going for a role in the UK, and my wife was doing the same thing. So we had basically similar conversation because we were at the same company. I got this opportunity to go abroad, and Suzanne got the opportunity also have similar conversations so we could move together, obviously. So I remember that I called her and said, listen, it went differently because I spoke to the hiring manager, and we had such a great connection and background, blah blah blah, and he ended up like, hey, you should take the role in New York. So I don't know what you think about that. And she's like, dude, I just got confirmation that it's okay for me to go to London. That's kind of the level of excitement I could deal with, and now you're coming up with New York. So that was the first thing we had to think about. Like, okay,
Yeah.
this is big. This is a big
Yeah.
step. But then the second thing that is really different is when you got your job offer, and it's so different in terms of pay and setup than you're used to in the Netherlands. But as soon as you land in New York, you figure out why, because it's exponentially more expensive. So then you basically have to make a bunch of decisions really quickly of something that you think, listen, I'm ready for this. I want an international career. I want to take this opportunity. And then the paperwork is in front of you, and you're like, oh, wow, am I going to do this? So basically, you close your eyes, you sign the paperwork, and you just go with the flow. And in between us landing in New York and signing this is 5 months of visa work, and just trying to figure out to get the, especially if you go to the US, you need a visa,
Yeah.
and it's not easy to obtain, easier than now, but still. So it took a while, and then you arrive in New York, and in a corporate apartment for the first 2 months while you find your own place. But these are typically very centrally located. So
Yeah.
our place was 42nd and 8th. And if you know anything about New York, that's basically on Times Square. So it drives you absolutely bonkers
Oh, really?
because your whole world changes. You move everything. You arrive at your apartment that has been rented out like a million times before, so
Yeah.
it doesn't look great. It is an awesome spot, but it's like, yeah, okay. It's like an old hotel room in a Marriott
Yeah.
type of situation. Yeah, within a couple of weeks we started looking and find our own place. But that was the first experience. Like so many things you have to deal with mentally in
Yeah.
terms of, wow, this is
Yeah.
different.
This is happening. It's indeed like a whirlwind that is coming towards you, and you need to figure out like, A, what is that entire process? Because I remember indeed just figuring out like the paperwork was
Yeah.
already okay. Where do I even I didn't even know that I had, a birth certificate. I need to find that and like
Yeah.
all of small things. But
It's
then
in Dutch, so you need the English one. So you need to find somebody at the local government that wants to help you. Yeah,
exactly. It's a little bit of a mess, or at least a chaotic process.
yeah,
And then when you arrive, I mean, I think for many people it's a dream to live close to Times Square, but I can also imagine when you want to kind of like settle in because it's not a vacation as well. Like you
yeah.
arrive with the mindset, I'm gonna make this a home, or at least I'm gonna try to make this a home for the time that you're gonna be there. What helped you to make it feel more at home?
I think the first thing I did was I bought a Sonos speaker, or at least a Bluetooth speaker to play my music because there was only a TV. I really needed to kind of be able to play some of my own tunes and kind of make it my home. And I think the other thing we did was just, yeah, we brought some stuff, obviously, that reminded us of home, or that because you're packing more than only a suitcase of clothes, so you have some stuff with you aside from everything that's going in crates and containers and will arrive like 2-3 months later. Just trying to figure out how you can for the 2 months you're there, how you can figure out the setup that you want, and also figuring out a schedule to just call home, right?
Yeah,
And because physically you're there, but mentally you're
yeah,
still back at home. So how do you deal with that? And how do you? And then New York is one of these places where people are lined up to visit you. So I think within a couple of weeks we had the first visitors, which also reminds me of something that like was really the most helpful is if you can show people how you live instead of
Yeah.
just talking about it. That makes a real difference in the conversations going forward. So yeah, a couple of the small things really help, but
Yeah.
staying connected really helped, and for us just finding a place quickly,
Yeah.
even if it was just still 6 weeks out before we could
Yeah.
move in, gave us kind of perspective. I remember my wife started walking up and down from our temporary apartment to our new apartment like on a daily basis to just already get used to the neighborhood or something. I don't know
Yeah.
what the ritual there was, but yeah,
Did you feel, like, confident moving there in the first place? Because if I look at my own time when I moved abroad, like you said, like, you want to have the small things there that remind you of home, and obviously, well, not obviously, sometimes you're lucky that your friends will visit, etcetera. But I remember for myself that just really make it a home, that took a long time, and be confident in kind of, like, my way of
yeah.
living. How was that for you?
Yeah, it is. I try to remember like because what you mentioned earlier, you're not on vacation, so you arrive on a Wednesday or a Thursday, and you're completely drained, and then on
Yeah.
Monday they expect you in the office at 8 a.m., right? And you better show up, and it's absolutely draining because for most people in the office, English is their first language, and for you it's your second language. And you haven't been exposed to it as much as you are gonna be. So you're completely drained by like noon and you come home and so and I don't remember, so what was your question, because I was still on kind of the topic of trying to make it a home, but I don't remember what you were asking
No,
initially.
that's fine. How, if you were like confident, did it take
Oh
you a
yeah,
lot
yeah.
that confidence into living abroad, basically?
Yeah, no, that's why I got there. Yeah, yeah, because everything is changing so fast, so that confidence gets shattered. Like you're very confident going in, but then because you're so drained and because you're like, okay, this is a different ball game
Yeah,
than I thought. You need to figure out like where your confidence was built on, and that is still all true, but you have to find it. You have to look for it because you don't have your support system around you. You are lucky enough to move together, but some people have to move alone, and that's even I cannot even imagine how that feels because then you need to figure it out all by yourself. So I was lucky enough to be able to move with my partner, but then you build your confidence together, I guess, and go through the motions. But I must say, New York was such a welcoming community as well of expats in general, like the French and the Canadians and a lot of people from the UK
yeah,
working for Vodafone. So yeah, it's a whole patchwork of
yeah,
solutions that will get you there.
yeah. Did you? Because I recognize that as well, and it's funny that you mentioned kind of the expat community that is super welcoming. Because I think you find if you're settling into places like that, your first kind of friends or community are the people that have through that or are going through that in the same way that you're going through that. Did you find that in New York as
Yeah,
well? Like, were those
yeah.
the people that you kind of connected with first?
Yeah, because you have shared experiences, and
Yeah,
it's almost like a self-help community, right? Like everybody is just sharing how what their journeys are, and is going through the same thing. Plus, in New York, people live in the city, so there is a lot more social activity after work and just around work than when you're out in a different city in the US where it's far more spread out. Like I'm in the LA area now where you don't have the setup like New York where everything is walkable, connected with subways, and the communities are kind of interchangeable in the sense of can I get there or not. Here you need to take a car to get anywhere.
well, anyone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I recognize that. Especially, I think, I mean, not that Dublin is the same as New York, maybe in a very small scale, but I think over there, indeed, where you have more of a community where you can
Yeah.
hop in and out, you do things outside of work because you have a very easy commute, helps as
Yeah.
well. Because
Yeah.
if I look over here, it's almost you need to plan that, and then you don't know the LA traffic. It can easily take you 2 hours to get from A to
Yeah.
B. It makes it a little bit more difficult than settling
Yeah.
in compared
Yeah.
to New York, I can imagine. Yeah. And often here, when we go abroad, we also show up a little bit different, right? You take all of the things from home, like you mentioned earlier as
Yeah.
well, like the directness, etc. Did you find that your background in the Netherlands or the culture that you grew up in the Netherlands helped you navigating things here in the United States? And how did that feel to maybe consciously adapt your style as well here in the United States?
Yeah, I think initially it helps you because it helps. We're an open community. We're travelers, and we've traded globally for centuries. We're a small country that needs to innovate and kind of needs to collaborate to be impactful, and that mindset, and also the way we how English is embedded in our education system, how we don't overdub TV and TV series, and how exposed we are to other cultures and languages really helps in the beginning to get started and to feel confident and comfortable, just moving into a different into a different country. In my case, an English speaking country, and the US in particular. I don't speak Spanish, so if I would go to Latin America or Spain, I think that would be a completely different experience where language is not something you master, and then it's very hard to get going. But once you're in it for a while, and then you start to recognize also kind of the limitations or the cultural differences from your home country into the host country that you live in. And yeah, I always try to treat the country that I'm in as I'm visiting somebody's house, right? You're careful, and you're mindful, and you're adjusting to how you would do if you visit a friend, right? So doing that, you also get exposed to the difference in opinions, or difference in political styles, or the difference in communication, etc. So it got me more open-minded, and it got me more adaptable to different cultures, different opinions, and more malleable to working together with folks that have different opinions than you grew up with, for example, or that see the world differently than you did in your small country of the Netherlands. So yeah, so it starts with adapting, adjusting, and language is your big kind of shoehorn in to actually move forward, and then you start to figure out the deeper layers of a country and a culture, and how people interact. And you take stuff home from that.
Yeah, I think because I recognize what you're saying as well, where you adapt yourself because you're more exposed to the other culture or to
Yeah,
different views and perspectives. And I think you grow so much as a person when you're basically in a new country by yourself or with your partner, like, and then you need to adjust and you're hearing all of these different perspectives, which is different than just seeing that on the news or when you're
yeah,
watching a television show. Even now, if I drive through LA, you can recognize certain spots from a television series or whatnot. But those
yeah.
are the small things where you're like, I recognize that, but now you're living through that, you change a little bit your perspective because you're now exposed to certain
Yeah.
things, other things, which I really enjoy as well. Even if you look at yourself and kind of like in your career ladder, you've held leadership roles in those international
Yeah.
environments. Did your leadership style also change through those experiences?
Yeah, of course. It's everything we just talked about. It's the exposure to different styles, different cultures, different approaches. You learn from other leaders that you start to work with. And I worked for so many different companies in a sense of style. There's a great book that it's called Kiss, Bow, Shake Hands. That's basically the Bible for international business and cultural differences. And got recommended to me by a colleague when I was working at Samsung, because we worked a lot with Korean leadership, and if you work in the US for a Korean company, then you have three cultures basically. You have the US, you have the Dutch, and you have the Korean culture. And trying to figure that out really helps you to change as a leader. And then you have these international leaders that you work with that give you perspective. So you change because you're in a process yourself, but you also change because the teams you're managing are on different continents, different time zones, deal with different issues, business issues, social issues,
Yeah.
what have you. So, and just by the sheer amount of time that you're in these
Yeah.
roles, ultimately that will change you. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I became way less direct and way more open-minded to adapt my style to whatever is needed for that
Yeah.
role, for that country, for that company than I probably would when I was 25 and just starting to lead teams. Yeah.
Yeah. It's super interesting. I will have to write down that book because now I'm also
Yeah.
curious about that.
Yeah,
And
it
yeah,
yeah, it's a really interesting book, and and you will recognize stuff from your time in Ireland probably, and you will
yeah,
recognize stuff from your time here in LA, um, and it's also if you really map it out in terms of directness, for example, if I saw a graph once like that talks about the communication styles, and if you have the Dutch and the Koreans, for example, they're on opposite sides of the spectrum in
yeah,
terms of the Dutch really want to get to a solution and okay, what are we going to do? Everybody chimes in, everybody can have their opinion, and we'll make a decision. Where in
yeah,
Korea, it's not that direct, not at all, and it's a completely different way of decision making.
yeah,
And if you don't dive into it, you might think they're not making decisions, but that's
yeah,
not true. Obviously, it's just
yeah,
it's a different approach. It's a different way of consensus building. It's a different way of how you conduct yourself in meetings or how you deal with your colleagues. It's absolutely not done to raise your voice or to scold at somebody in a meeting or to put somebody in its place. Where in the Netherlands, I think you and I both had experience where we were like, okay, I got laid into me by somebody in a meeting, and
yeah,
it was just okay,
yeah, yeah,
whatever.
definitely.
There's so yeah. Especially if it's that far apart. It's very interesting to study it and to figure out like what can you take from it, what can you learn from it, and
Yeah,
how can
yeah,
you get more all round in your approach
yeah.
to people. Yeah,
Yeah, it's very interesting that you mentioned also the Korean culture because when I lived in Australia, one of my housemates was from South Korea, and she is Sue. If you're listening, you're amazing and super kind. But she was basically our peacemaker in the house
yeah,
because we were with different cultures. So we had the American culture, we had somebody from Sweden, and then two Belgians, and then myself from the
yeah,
Netherlands. And we were all sort of direct or different kind of like styles. And then Sue was just this super calm and nobody dared to even raise their voice because we were like, we can't do that around Sue. Like we
no,
need to say differently. And I think that worked so well to have her like to be
yeah,
our grounding kind of like
yeah,
culture because we learned so much from each other's cultures as well. So even with, the simplest things about eating habits or household habits, etc.,
yeah,
it just helped in the communication. And you have to have that open mindset
yeah,
to learn about those different types of communication styles, etc. So
yeah,
yeah, we recognize what you're saying there.
yeah. Yeah, I know, 100%, and it's good for your blood pressure as well. If you have somebody
Yeah.
that keeps that keeps everything calm. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I agree. I agree. So if we're switching a little bit of the directions here, you're now of the head of the MBO here in LA, and you help organizations to be successful in California. What is the most surprising element of the work that you do now?
I really find that Dutch companies have great innovation embedded in places that I wouldn't expect it.
Yeah.
We just finished a Dutch trade mission with 30 companies in the sports industry visited us in LA, and we organized it together with the consulate and with the embassy and with folks at the Ministry of Economic Affairs in the Netherlands. So it's a big kind of team effort to get all these companies here to plan for a week and then to visit different local companies, venues, sports venues for the Olympics, local cities, city officials, etc. And in preparation for that mission, you start to go over the guest list, which companies are coming, what are they doing, what's the industry they're in, and then you just see that there is this one company that just powered the global tour of Coldplay with their battery systems and did that without a hiccup and really have this story about sustainability and how you can power stadiums, global artists, world tours, or what have you without these big diesel generators, but with battery power. There's another company that had all their microphones embedded into a dome, so nobody will ever see or know that it's a Dutch innovation that's in the
Yeah.
roof of the Intuit Dome, the new arena for the Clippers, the NBA team. And that powers all the fan engagement you see on the screens, which seat is the loudest, which fan is the loudest, and all these different gimmicks they do in between games. Companies that manages all the drainage for soccer fields and sports fields in general, and already got deals like a couple days in by being able to showcase their innovation to local teams. So the most surprising thing is these if you move here with a trade mission, for example, or if you move here as a company, you feel like an individual moving for a business.
Yeah.
You feel completely blue and like I have no experience, but in fact you do. But because you come into this big market with a great set of stories, you're already having a great revenue base back home in the Netherlands, and you basically start over what you did a couple of years ago when building that business, but now powered with all these successes. So
Yeah.
that made me proud
Yeah.
to represent these businesses, but also to represent the country and see what we can contribute in a huge market like LA. Because if you
Yeah.
think about the Olympics, this is going to be the first Olympics that will have no new venues that are going to be built. So everything is going to be done in existing venues.
Yeah.
Obviously, there is some adjustments that they make to certain venues. For example, SoFi Stadium will have the swimming pool, and it's now the football stadium of the Rams and the Chargers. But it's going to have swimming in there, and it's the first time you can enjoy swimming not with 3,000 people, but with 50,000 people. So
Yeah.
it's going to be a completely different experience. Everything is going to be on steroids here, and the investment is $7.1 billion for this Olympics, and they're not even building venues. So that money is all going into different things: technology, urban development, mobility, what have you. And to be able to support that investment over the coming years to bring companies here and show them around, make the connections for them. That's just a
Yeah.
great way to spend your.
Yeah, I hear a lot of passion about this as well. Was that one of the reasons why it made you kind of like intrigued to get into this field here in the United States?
No, yeah. So the big reason why I'm doing what I'm doing now is that I was at a fork in my career that I've done a couple things a couple times,
Yeah.
and I was trying to figure out, am I going to do the same thing again,
Yeah.
or is there something different? And like this just happened, right? My predecessor, his term ended, and this role became vacant, and I wasn't looking for it. But I was part of this network. So for
Yeah.
now, this is a conscious decision to do this in this country, in this day and age with the Olympics coming up and all these opportunities for the Netherlands. But moving to the US in general was never about something specific in other than great adventure, right? Let's see what we can do. We're 26 and let's go for it. Or I don't know. I was even older. Yeah, I was way older. I
Yeah.
was in my 30s already, but still felt like
Yeah.
26. But now it's a real conscious decision of, okay, I can do
Yeah.
this for the next couple of years
Yeah.
and try to achieve a certain success
Yeah.
for the Netherlands. The longer you're gone, the more you start to appreciate the Netherlands for
Yeah.
the great stuff, all the orange and what have you, with my orange phone, and also going back to the Netherlands, going back into Schiphol Airport now,
Yeah.
really has a different feel for me than it did when I lived there. So I think you start to appreciate the good stuff and you forget kind of the stuff that annoyed you, like the weather or what have you. But so no, this is the first time I have kind of a conscious decision of what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. The
Yeah.
years before was really about opportunity and let's
Yeah.
go and have an adventure. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing because I recognize myself in that as well. Like I had a I mean, you make the decision to move abroad, but you were kind of like, oh yeah, we will see. And my journey started when I moved to Ireland and for that specific role. And I was like, oh, we will see. It's at least an
Yeah.
adventure. Now, almost 7 years later, I'm still here and enjoying kind of like the adventure and next steps and all of that. I think it's really good. And I hear that with you as well, that you have a lot of passion about like the different cultures, but also how can you help, and to see that and where you can really differentiate yourself helping others. And I think that that is very unique. If you look at the MBSO, and it's just relatively a small team, but what are you the most proud of since leading in that LA office? Obviously, it's the LA kind of the Olympics that are coming up, etc. But maybe what makes that a success, and what are you the most proud of if you look at that journey?
Yeah, it's what you mentioned. It's a small team, but the force multiplier is in the collaboration with how the Netherlands has organized their international trade. If you think about the US, we have an embassy in DC, and we have 5 consulate generals in the different cities, and then we have 3 trade posts, which are the MBSOs in LA, in Phoenix, and in Houston. So that is the network of Dutch government support in the
Yeah.
US alone. We have 23 of these MBSOs globally, like in any market where we think we can help Dutch entrepreneurs. So that makes me proud that you can do so much with a small team, because you have the backing of folks in The Hague as well. And for anybody that thought that thinks government is slow, that's not the folks I work with. The folks I work with in The Hague as well, so back home, these guys and girls are all so focused on international business, and half of them don't even want to move abroad, but the sheer fact that they're working with companies that want to expand internationally, that they have a decent budget to work with to support that we can also, and we're showing consistently the returns on the dollars invested or the euros invested in terms of the returns that come back to the earning power of the whole of the Netherlands, because that's kind of where this fits, right? This fits in the bigger picture of how do you help Dutch business grow, either
Yeah.
domestically or with a smaller group abroad, and that's the patchwork of networks that then is part of the whole system of offices. So yeah. So what are you most proud of? Like, obviously my team and the way they operate, and the amount of relationships they were able to maintain, and also to call on. Like, the fact that we were able to visit all the Olympic venues in LA is only possible because you have a network, people that are willing to let you in, to tour you around, to give you space, to hold a seminar, and to just walk the premises with 50 Dutch people. So yeah, maintaining a network, working really smart to be able to get the best results with limited investments. Yeah,
That is a really amazing story. Would you
yeah,
say that what separates also the ones who really make it in that international environment compared to the ones that are maybe struggling to set up, an entrepreneur kind of like company or like work internationally? Would you say that those aspects of, we talked about that as well, but like the adaptiveness of cultures, the communications, and your network, would you say that that
yeah,
separates?
yeah, and the proximity. So you need to be able to put in the able and willing to put in the work, right? So if you're still in the Netherlands, you need to work off hours to meet the people where they are. If you really want to be successful, you need to be on the ground. Going back to the Olympics, for example, the city of LA has a target of 75% of all investments and business deals that are made for the Olympics need to be done with a local entity, local company. So if you're not here, or if you're not part of a joint venture with a local company, big or small, you will not be able to get through the noise or even to get the deal, because it's just really focused on what's happening in US. The US is such a big market as well. If you want to maintain a network, and if you're not local, it's very difficult to take that one meeting where you get an invite 2 days before. Hey, do you want to come over to this dinner, to these drinks, or there is an event at City Hall, or there is something that a company is organizing, and that would obviously not be something that you would spend a ticket on and fly across the ocean. But if you're local, you will drive up there and you're like, okay, I'll go there, and you meet somebody that will help you with your next deal. You never know. You never know how that pans out. So I think being successful, it means being present, being there, being where you need to be, and that's also the trick my office and other offices have to master is like getting to the root of why an entrepreneur wants to do business in LA, because they
Yeah.
can come into our office and we'll have our first chat with them. But we really need to really need to understand like why LA, because there is different entry points in the US, and typically they have the right reasons and the right approach, and they know exactly where they need to be. So that makes our life very easy. But you cannot conquer the US just by one clean swoop. You need to figure out like, where's my product market fit? Where do I fit in? And that could be Phoenix, for example, if you're
Yeah.
if you're in
Yeah.
semicon, or that could be LA if you're in the creative or the sports sector, or that
Yeah.
could be Houston for that matter, or
Yeah.
New York, and you work with our consulate general instead of with an NBSO office. So that's how I think the success is built.
Yeah.
Being local.
Yeah, I think that is really good advice for people that, you know, are trying to figure out their international journeys as well, and some want to have more of a entrepreneurship kind of like mindset or start a business, or some that already have a well-established business but want to expand to different markets. I think it's really helpful for those people to understand kind of like, hey, where do I need to be and how do I get there? Also for people to know that organizations such as the MBSO even exist, and like that you can connect
Yeah.
with those people as well. I think it's super important.
Yeah, and if you're an individual and you want to go abroad, it's even different, right? You need to figure out the company, because this job is always about the next job, right? Like, what
Yeah.
are you doing today that will bring you further down your
Yeah.
career path or your passion, or how do you set yourself up for success? So, if you want to get into an international career at some point, you need to start finding the companies that are able to support
Yeah.
you there, or that are able where you can grow into those roles. And as an entrepreneur, it's good to understand like, why now? Like
Yeah.
what's the most Dutch businesses will start in neighboring countries, right? Will start predominantly in
Yeah.
Germany, because that is a market that's 4 times bigger, 5 times bigger than the Netherlands. And if you can demonstrate to yourself that you can scale, that you can move one
Yeah.
up the ladder, then you can take more of Europe, and then maybe move to the US. The same goes for individuals just trying to figure out like,
Yeah.
what could my journey be within this company to
Yeah.
ultimately get to the market where I want to be, because competition is fierce, and it's a
Mhm.
huge investment for companies as well. So you also really need to understand like, what am I bringing to the table that
Yeah.
makes me the person that they're going to spend literally 50 grand on to get across the pond, right? Because it's lawyers, it's a moving company, it's all these things that need to be in place before you and
Yeah.
I have been moved from one place to another, and people don't always recognize how much money
Yeah.
is involved.
Yeah, yeah, it's the money, and indeed, I think that that is really good advice. Even if I look at my own journey, like, what is that next step then, and how are you benefiting the most out of your current environment to get you to the next
Yeah,
environment? Whether that is your own kind of like career journey or something that you want to put on the market, etc. And then also to have that still curiosity and being able to recognize what are my unique selling points, and then how are you gonna kind of fit that into a newer environment? But you have to have that mindset of, hey, that can change because the market is asking or the environment is asking for something different. Yeah,
yeah.
I can see that. So we're almost at the end of the podcast. So I do have three last questions for you. And the first one is, what do you still miss the most about the Netherlands?
Time.
Yeah.
That's um that's never changes, and I think it got easier with tech and the way you're able to connect. And I also hear that from my family, that it's the relationships you maintain when you move abroad, and if you put the work in, they become more meaningful. I really miss the short trips to say, okay, I'll jump in the car and drive to my sister or to my friends, or what have you. So I
Mm.
think that will always be the big
Yeah.
glaring item on the list, that is just a trade-off between being
Yeah.
abroad and being in proximity of your family. A lot of people talk about snacks and food, but if you live abroad long enough, you know
Yeah.
exactly where to buy it and where to find it and how to get it.
That is also true. I think every quarter I just get my food, but yeah, you can't do the same with friends and family. So I definitely
Yeah,
recognize that. And it's not per se I find it easier, but it's maybe easier to manage. And then I mean, it's super cliche, but the older that you get, the longer that you're away, you're starting to recognize, hey, this is the relationships that I need to invest in, and these
yeah,
are maybe relationships that you need to reconsider, and kind of like, hey, because you still have, an entire ocean between
yeah,
you and the people that you want to stay connected with, and time is valuable as well, and your
yeah.
energy. Have you found a good rhythm for yourself now that you've been here for 12 years? Do you still kind of like skating through that, or did you find kind of your
No,
rhythm?
we did. And so we never missed a Christmas, for example. So, and even this year, like every single year, we have our 2, 3, 4 weeks in the Netherlands where we spend time with everybody we love. And we also have a place in the Netherlands, which makes it easier, so that you don't have to crash couches or studies or guest rooms. So that makes it easier as well to have a place to call home.
Yeah,
um, and just a rhythm of just not missing the important stuff and being willing to put in the effort.
yeah,
Obviously, you need to be in a fortunate enough position to fly back and forth often, and but I am luckily, but I also make decisions to be able to do that instead of this, and then it works for me. And then you still have to answer the questions, when are you going back? Because
yeah,
that is the first question you get, and it's mostly people that have never thought about living abroad, or this is not going back or forth. This is where we live, right? What we do, and how we connect, and I also don't want to be in the US full time or in the Netherlands full time in that sense. I want to be able to move
yeah,
between these countries and continents. And then finding a job that has some tie to the Netherlands is always an important factor for me. Whether it was this job, my previous job, or even when I was at Spotify or Samsung, there was always a component of Europe in the roles I had, which brought me typically to London, and that
yeah.
brought me easily to Amsterdam, obviously. Yeah,
Yeah, I think that that is a very good thing that you mentioned there as well. I think it's good to, if you want to stay connected as well, to find environments, even though if it is
yeah,
in your job or elsewhere, to stay connected at home. And I
yeah,
definitely recognize the couch surfing and all of that because that it
yeah,
yeah something that I sometimes need to navigate through, and it's funny because people would say like, "Oh, just come here for a month," and I will be like, "No, thank you. Like, I have my home here, and I have
yeah.
my own things and stuff like that. I don't want to kind of lay on a couch for an entire
No,
month
exactly.
out of house."
But we're also lucky as Dutch with the role that Amsterdam Schiphol has in Europe. You can fly almost from anywhere in the world direct to Amsterdam,
Yeah,
which I never recognized that was such a perk until I started to talk to other people that need to go through Amsterdam to get elsewhere in Europe, if the city isn't big enough for a direct flight, right?
yeah.
Um, so yeah, big shout out to Kayla and to Schiphol because those are I'm a big fan. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the next question is, what do you now love the most about living here in LA or maybe operating internationally?
You mentioned it early on when you said, "Hey, you recognize stuff that you saw on TV." I had that in New York, that you feel like you're in an environment that you already know or that you wanted to be in. LA is the same, but also completely different because it kind of represents the whole kind of movie side of what we came to know: the studios, the palm trees, the mountains, the Hollywood sign. Yeah, traffic is hell from time
Yeah,
to time, or most of the time, but the signs above the highway sometimes remind you of, wow, I'm doing this, right? Like being here. And I think we're both lucky that we live a little bit outside of LA, which gives us the proximity to the beach as well, and it gives us the opportunity to have both, so to have a very healthy work-life balance and be able to do a lot of outdoor stuff like hiking and cycling and what have you, and jump in a car and go
yeah,
to LA and grab a nice restaurant, or
yeah,
go to see a movie, seeing a movie in the Chinese theater, or that's like seeing. being in places where you walk to the cinema and you pass the Jimmy Kimmel studio
Yeah,
and and the Walk of Fame, all that stuff, still reminds you of like
yeah.
this is a big market. Stuff is happening here with global exposure.
Yeah, it is a little bit of a pinch me moment.
Yeah,
I had
yeah,
my
yeah,
friend over 2 weeks ago, and we were driving kind of like and doing the touristy things, and then I needed to remind myself, "Oh, I live here. That's
yeah,
strange."
exactly. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, you don't get used to it while you're used to it, I guess, and
yeah,
that is the beauty, I think, of especially LA. There's so much to do, and we have such the unique opportunity to go to the beach indeed or the mountains. You have LA, and I think it's a really wonderful place if you want to have like different things and
yeah.
everybody can be themselves in LA because there's just so much to do.
Yeah, yeah. And my friends always send me screenshots of the weather comparison. Thanks, man. How's your day, right? And they send you like 7 days of rain and like 20 degrees or like freezing temperatures in the Netherlands
Yeah.
versus
Oh,
nice and
100.
sunny day over here. Yeah. So
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think
yeah.
I can ever get used to anything other than
No,
this. This
no.
is
Yeah.
perfect. So the last and final question is if you had one piece of advice for somebody that's moving abroad or stepping into that international journey, what advice would you give them?
Yeah. It's for me, it would be try to think if you move, especially if you move with a partner, try to figure out that you both have it figured out, that you both know what you're going to be doing. Because too often you see that one of them is moving for their job and the other has to figure everything out, especially with kids. And if you don't appreciate the support you get from the other one, if you're the one that's moving for a job and you don't think about like how what that setup needs to be, you're going to fail together because you're not going to be able to go through the journey the way you want to. So
Yeah.
so think about these components as well. That means like where are you going to live, and that might not be the place that you want to live, but where your partner should live because they have to be there the whole day.
Yeah.
So you need to find these compromises there. So figure out together like how you're gonna do it. Because after 4 weeks of being in a new city, we were lucky that we both had a job, so we went through the same journey. But that typically doesn't happen. So
Yeah.
typically you have somebody that is heads down in their job, and the other one is trying to
Yeah.
figure out the city. And after three
Yeah.
weeks, you've seen everything, and
Yeah.
then what, right? So try to figure that out. And
Yeah.
secondly, don't overthink it. If you really feel you need to do that, go for it, and try to figure out how you keep that connection with the Netherlands, with your friends, and stay invested there,
Yeah.
because that really helped us. We never wavered on that. We always made the right decisions in terms of, for us, in terms of time spent, or sometimes giving up a vacation to be a little bit longer in the Netherlands and to spend time with family, especially if your parents get older. So so it's all about choices. But um yeah, I think that would, for me, looking back, are the biggest successes
Yeah.
to stay in it this long, right?
Yeah.
Um, and the third one, try to get off your visa if that's possible, right? So if you're tied to a country where you need a visa that's tied to your company. For me, it was great that I could move to a green card and basically take control of my own destiny. I could still go back in the time that was allotted to this role, but I could also make a different decision if that
Yeah.
time came.
Yeah.
So if you have the opportunity to take control of your own immigration destiny, that helps as well. It's big. It's those are big items, but very important.
Yeah, I think it's super important. I think, with those wise words, I think, your support system is your everything. You
Yeah,
don't need to navigate things yourself. You're in it together. And whether that's with a partner or people that are in your environment that are your
yeah,
support system, to really embrace that together so that you don't have to figure that out by yourself for yourself, but you're doing that inside of your own community in that sense. Yeah, I recognize that. And I think those are very wise words where we're going to wrap up this podcast. So, Jorrit, really thank you for being so open and insightful today and for showing us what that means to build a career across borders, but also staying true to yourself. And yeah, really mindset that you're showing grit in the global world. So, really appreciate that. And for all that are
thank
listening,
you.
for joining us here on Borderless Diaries, where we not just unpack luggage, but the mindset behind it. And see you next week. Thank you so much, Joris.
Thank you, Simone. Bye bye.